Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some breaking news coming out from the G7 summit that's currently being held by world leaders in Italy right now. And we've got articles coming out today that it looks like the G7 leaders have agreed to send a $50 billion loan to Ukraine, and it'll be repaid by frozen Russian assets that were taken from Russia at the start of the war. Now, if you weren't aware of this, back in 2022, when Russia started receiving massive sanctions from the West, primarily the United States, there was many Russian assets that were taken from rich oligarchs, billionaires, all over from Russia. And many of these assets are still sitting in banks collecting interest. And the G7 leaders, along with the EU, have been trying to access this money and get the interest from these assets that are sitting in the bank so they can use it and give it to Ukraine. So they've come up with a plan to send a $50 billion loan to Ukraine right now. And by the end of the year, they'll have this $50 billion from what I understand. And that it will be repaid using the frozen Russian assets interest that's currently being accumulated sitting in foreign banks. So this is really big news. Russia is not happy about this. They've come out many times and said they were going to retaliate, and that they've also said this was theft. So I'm sure Vladimir Putin is fuming right now because Ukraine has been getting lots of wins lately, okay? They've held back the Russians in the Kharkiv region. They've got lots of weapons recently from the $60 billion loan that was passed about 2 to 3 months ago from the United States. Then they also are, now they're going to be getting another $50 billion loan from the G7 summit, or the G7 leaders that will agree to give this loan to them. So that's another $50 billion by the end of the year. And then on top of that, just yesterday, Russia got hit really hard on their financial system with more sanctions. And it's going to make it very difficult for lots of foreign countries like China, North Korea, or anybody like that that's doing business with them. They could be subject to sanctions if they continue doing business with Russia's wartime economy. That's what the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen came out and said yesterday. I did a whole video on that. So Russia's getting hammered right now, and they're really getting forced into a position where they may not be able to continue this war anymore, even if they want to, okay? And if they do, it'll continue to hamper their economy and make it difficult for them to fight this war. So I'm going to be talking some more about this here today. Let's talk about this loan that's going to be given to Ukraine. So this is on NPR. G7 agrees to loan Ukraine $50 billion from the interest on frozen Russian assets. So this just coming out today. Here's Zelensky meeting at the G7 summit. That's Italy's prime minister. So it says here, Western leaders have agreed to loan Ukraine up to $50 billion to fight Russia and rebuild after the lengthy war. Money that will be repaid over time from the interest accumulating on frozen Russian financial assets, senior U.S. official told reporters. G7 leaders are still working out the details of exactly how and when to distribute the money. The negotiations have been at the top of the agenda for the G7 leaders summit in Puglia, Italy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think it's Puglia. What are the frozen Russian assets and how much are they worth? When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Western governments froze about $300 billion in Russian assets, including money, securities, gold, and bonds, held mainly in banks in Europe. Leaders of the G7 economies have agreed to use the interest generated by the assets, about $3 billion per year, to help Ukraine. And it says here, when will Ukraine get the loan? Some of the details are being worked out. United States and European countries have different proposals for distributing the money. And this is going to be a hard name to say. Scheherazade Rehman, a professor of the international finance at George Washington University, explained it in simple terms. Europeans would like to transfer them to Ukraine yearly or every 2 years, so it's spread it out. The Americans, however, want to find a way to get this money very quickly to Ukraine all at once, Redmond said. European proposal has been for about $3 billion a year go to Ukraine, and only interest from a certain part of the frozen Russian assets, $190 billion, held by a company called Euroclear in Belgium, to be shared. The U.S., on the other hand, wanted to give $60 billion to Ukraine up front because Ukraine's need on the battlefield is dire. Officials had said that interest generated from the frozen Russian assets would go towards paying back that money. So essentially, this will be a loan. So Remen said Washington has the weaker hand in the debate because only about $5 billion of the $3 billion in Russian assets are held in the United States. and European nations are concerned about how they would be paid back for a big initial lump sum, excuse me. The agreement will likely be some sort of compromise between the European and U.S. proposals, but Redmond said recent elections in countries like France and Germany may also affect discussions. Europeans really have to get their act together at this G7 meeting because they're on shaky ground just because of the European parliamentary elections that just took place, where the hard right has now got a historic toehold, she said. Europeans are coming to this with very different footing than if this was 10 days ago. So they're concerned that these elections will affect this decision to give this money to Ukraine. But what the current G7 leaders are trying to do right now, again, is loan Ukraine $50 billion right now and try to get it to them as quickly as possible, hopefully by the end of the year. And then they're hoping that all these countries that choose to loan this money, I don't know if this would all just be the United States or who would do this. They're still deciding how they will fund this, but they want to make sure they're going to get paid back using the interest that is made off of this 300 plus billion that's sitting in foreign banks across Europe. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is really, really big news for Ukraine. And Ukraine is getting massive, massive amounts of support right now, which is really good for them. And at the same time, this is continuing to push Russia into a corner. And hopefully we don't see some major escalation coming from them, because obviously they're not happy with what's going on right now. They've just been sanctioned heavily. Their territory is being struck by U.S. weapons, which they haven't been okay with that. Now Ukraine's going to be getting more funding, more weapons, and it's going to make it more difficult for Russia to continue fighting this war. And obviously what Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, wants is he wants to retake all this land that's been taken from Ukraine. He wants Crimea back. He wants the eastern side of Ukraine back. And he wants to push the Russians out and take back the land that was taken from him, is what he has claimed many times. So I think Ukraine will continue to fight this war until Russia completely leaves the country of Ukraine, even the annexed areas that have been taken by Russia, okay? So let me know what you think down below. This is very, very big news. Wanted to share this with you. That's going to be it for this update, though. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. And also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, I hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.